Help me hit 7,000 subscribers. Support the video with a like and leave your thoughts in the comments. I read everyone. Thank you. I never imagined a simple lunch could unravel everything I thought I knew about my life. My name is Nathan, and I've been married to Laura for nearly a decade. On paper, we had it all. Comfortable house, stable careers, occasional weekend getaways. But lately, something had felt off. First, I chalked it up to stress. She had been working longer hours, and I thought I was overreacting when I noticed her scrolling on her phone with that secretive smile. But intuition, it turns out, is rarely wrong. It started with the texts. At first, I caught fleeting glimpses, brief notifications that disappeared before I could read them. But one afternoon, curiosity got the better of me. Her phone had been left unlocked on the kitchen counter while she took a shower. My heart thumped, a mix of fear and anticipation, as I scrolled through the conversation. There it was, explicit, unmistakable, and impossible to ignore. Laura and her colleague Eric were carrying on a full-blown affair. The words burned into my mind, vivid and cruel, each one a betrayal I could not have imagined. I didn't confront her immediately. Shock rendered me silent, almost numb. My mind raced, trying to reconcile the smiling woman I saw every morning with the lies she had been weaving behind my back. I spent the next few days in a fog, replaying moments, searching for signs I had missed. Every laugh, every casual touch, suddenly felt tainted. I felt stupid, naive, and enraged all at once. And yet, underneath the storm of emotion, a calm determination began to take root. I wasn't going to let this slide. Hiring a private investigator wasn't easy. I wasn't the kind of man who enjoyed scheming, but clarity was more important than comfort. When Jordan, the investigator, presented the evidence, photos, timestamps, and even receipts from restaurants where she'd met Eric, the betrayal crystallized into something undeniable. There was no misreading this. Laura's laughter on our anniversary, the stolen kisses she still gave me, now felt like lies crafted for my eyes only. It wasn't enough to confront Laura alone. My plan needed precision, subtlety, and a measure of poetic justice. Eric had a wife, Christine, who deserved to know the truth. She had unknowingly been complicit in this lie simply by trusting her husband. That night, as I reviewed every detail, I realized the confrontation had to be public, undeniable, and irreversible. No excuses, no room for deception. The morning of the confrontation, I stayed calm. I couldn't let rage dictate my actions. Instead, I focused on preparation, rehearsing what I would say, the sequence of events, and how each person would react. I reminded myself that I wasn't seeking revenge in the traditional sense. I wanted truth, exposure, and accountability. When Laura waltzed in later that afternoon, smiling as if she had no care in the world, my stomach twisted. Her radiant smile, once comforting, now felt like a knife in my chest. I had rehearsed my words, my calm expressions, my slow, deliberate reveal. Before confronting her, I reached out to Christine. I knew the moment had to be handled delicately, but firmly. She was shocked, hurt, and angry, an emotional cocktail I barely contained over the phone. When I suggested meeting, she agreed. It was clear she had suspected nothing, and the thought of revealing the truth to her alongside the evidence would be as devastating as it was necessary. By the time Laura returned home from her lunch date with Eric, I had set everything into motion. The evidence was compiled, the people were ready, and my heart had found a strange equilibrium. Anger still simmered, but it was tempered by focus. I knew that this confrontation wouldn't be easy. The moment I revealed the texts, the photos, the patterns, everything would shatter. The smiles, the lies, the casual intimacy. All of it would crumble under the weight of undeniable proof. And yet, underneath it all, I felt something I hadn't expected. Clarity. The betrayal was not just a wound. It was a guide, pointing me toward a life where deceit had no hold. This wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming dignity, exposing lies, and setting boundaries that couldn't be crossed again. The door clicked behind her as she stepped into the living room, her smile still bright, oblivious to the storm that was about to hit. I met her eyes, calm, steady, and unyielding. What happened next would change everything. Every relationship, every trust, every carefully constructed facade. The tension in the room was palpable, like a storm held in suspense. Laura's smile faltered the second I laid the evidence on the coffee table, screenshots, photos, text logs, each one a stark, undeniable testament to her betrayal. Eric's name, once just a word in passing, now screamed deceit. Laura's eyes widened, a flash of panic breaking through the carefully maintained composure she had worn like armor for months. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't shout. I simply let the evidence speak. Christine, sitting across from Laura with a quiet, controlled fury, absorbed every detail. Her shock was raw, her grief immediate, but I could see the wheels turning. This was betrayal, but now it had a name, a face, and a timeline. The air was thick with tension, silence punctuated only by the occasional sigh or shaky intake of breath. Laura tried to explain, stumbled over excuses, but each word only confirmed her guilt. Eric, when confronted, shifted uncomfortably, his own bravado faltering under the combined weight of his wife's presence and the evidence in front of him. Christine's gaze was icy, measured, and unforgiving. It didn't take long for the truth to settle like concrete. No denials, no evasions could erase what was already exposed. What happened next was swift. Laura and Eric's personal lives began to crumble under the scrutiny. Marriages that had once seemed secure now lay in ruins. Divorce proceedings were initiated within days, and Eric faced consequences at work once his affair with a subordinate came to light. His professional reputation, carefully cultivated over years, evaporated in a week. Laura, stripped of the comfort of denial, confronted the reality that deceit carries a cost far greater than she had anticipated. Throughout all of this, I maintained a calm distance. I wasn't seeking vengeance or to inflict suffering. I was reclaiming control over my life. Watching the consequences unfold wasn't satisfying in a gloating way. It was validation, proof that truth has a gravity that cannot be ignored. I had been patient, deliberate, and intentional. And in that patience, I found my power. The days following the confrontation were quiet, but heavy. I sorted through the wreckage of what had been my marriage, sifting through memories, objects, and emotions. Some items I kept, relics of a love that had once been real. Others I discarded, symbols of a deception I refused to carry forward. And in the silence, I began to feel something I hadn't in months. Clarity. Rebuilding life after betrayal is neither linear nor easy. There were moments of doubt, loneliness, and grief, but also moments of profound self-awareness. I discovered that healing is not about forgetting or forgiving necessarily. It's about understanding the truth of a situation, acknowledging your worth, and refusing to remain a participant in someone else's deceit. Over the following months, I focused on myself, my work, and friendships that had weathered the storm. I reconnected with old passions, found comfort in routines, and allowed myself the space to grieve and grow. Laura and Eric, on the other hand, struggled to maintain the bond they had tried to forge at the expense of others. Guilt, shame, and the reality of fractured lives weighed heavily on them. What they had pursued in secrecy could not withstand the exposure, and the relationship they had imagined collapsed under the scrutiny of truth and consequence. I met Christine occasionally after the dust settled, not to gloat or reminisce, but to witness the strength she had cultivated in the aftermath. Together, in small, quiet ways, we acknowledged the necessity of facing betrayal openly and the courage it takes to demand honesty, even when it's painful. The experiences had scarred all of us, but they also left room for growth, self-respect, and clarity of what we would no longer tolerate in our lives. By the end of that year, I had rebuilt not just my life, but my perspective. I approached relationships differently, more cautiously, yet with a deeper appreciation for transparency and trust. Laura's betrayal had cost her nearly everything: the marriage, the facade of respectability, and the comfort of denial. Eric's life had also shifted irreversibly, a cautionary tale of choices made in secrecy. And I I emerged with a renewed sense of dignity, proof that facing truth head-on, no matter how painful, is the only path to freedom. Sometimes, late at night, I reflect on that lunch, the moment where smiles masked betrayal, and I realize how fragile trust can be when treated carelessly. But I also recognize the resilience that comes from confronting reality, holding steady under pressure, and refusing to be diminished by someone else's choices. Life moved forward, and so did I, stronger, wiser, and finally at peace. Because at the end of the day, truth and integrity outlast deceit and guilt. And while some relationships crumble under the weight of lies, others, like my own self-worth, only grow stronger when tested. Betrayal leaves scars, but it also leaves lessons. And those lessons, if embraced, can rebuild not just a life, but a soul.